The third thing that I wanted to talk about was, activists beyond the activism beyond the political realm, beyond the parliamentary realm. Recently we've seen a lot of activism on the part of, conservative Christian activists in the areas of anti-vaccination. So there have been groups of church leaders putting out statements like the Ezekiel Declaration and the Moses Statement, framing resistance to compulsory vaccination as a freedom of worship question, saying that churches should be allowed to let unvaccinated people attend public worship because freedom of worship is a fundamental right, and wanting to resist mandatory vaccination on freedom of religion grounds. And another area is the push for protection of religious freedom in response to the marriage equality decision in 2017. And then another area, especially in New South Wales, is the One Nation sponsored education bill that tries to or wants to prohibit teachers from discussing gender diversity or gender fluidity in schools. And the common theme that I've seen in all of those topics is the question of authority. They're all, particularly when I read through the Ezekiel Declaration and the Moses Declaration, I was thinking, how would you theologize questions about vaccination and protection from illness? Well, I could think of all kinds of ways of thinking about it. You could think about love of neighbour. You could think about your body as a temple of the Holy Spirit. You could think about care for the most vulnerable, but none of those things come up in any of those statements. What comes up time and again is the question of authority and who's in charge and the relationship between church and state, and we're not going to let the government tell us what to do. We're not going to let ourselves be bossed around by the government. And it's really building up this picture of churches, conservative churches, wanting to resist being told what to do by the secular authorities. And that same strand or emphasis is also present, I think, in the questions about religious freedom and about gender diversity and gender fluidity. And in relation to religious freedom, the religious freedom campaign, it's been very interesting to watch how until about 2009, 2010, most churches in Australia, but there were some exceptions, but most churches in Australia actually opposed religious freedom legislation. They opposed it when it was a referendum question in 1984. They opposed broadening Section 116 to include religious freedom protection. They have consistently, they opposed extending the Human Rights Act to include protection of religious freedom. And back then, protection of religious freedom was framed as being about rights for religious minorities, like for minority religious traditions, like protecting the rights of Muslim women to wear a hijab on the street without being abused or spat at, or that kind of thing. But once it became a matter of same-sex rights, gay and lesbian and trans people's rights, the discourse turned around very fast. And from 2010 onwards, once same-sex marriage particularly became part of the public discussion, that was when conservative churches and suddenly became advocates for religious freedom protection. And probably most of you know the fabulous Eleni Poulos, whose PhD thesis I just finished supervising. She did the most brilliant analysis of that in her PhD thesis, which is available online. So if you want to know more about that, I commend you to read her thesis. So those are the sort of areas where I've seen upsurge of political activism from the conservative Christian side outside of Parliament. And the thing that has struck me from observing this over time is this kind of continued fascination with the area of authority, with the question of authority. Who's going to be in charge here? Church or state, God or government?